Welcome to Awakening in Health, and this morning I am in a resort in the beautiful island of Koh Samui. And this morning, it's the morning after a presentation for the Samui Real Group at the Greenlight Cafe on Koh Samui. And we had a guest speaker his name is Frans Vandenbosch, and I'll just read his bio from my phone because it's a little bit too lengthy for me to remember. But he lived in China for many years, visiting more than 50 cities and villages throughout the country. In his professional activities in China, he supported companies in the automotive, medical, electronics and plastic processing sectors. He was a guest lecturer at Qingdao University for some time and was a keynote speaker at conferences for Chinese entrepreneurs. As technical director at TGI, he led the styling and engineering of new Chinese cars. He is the co-founder of IIGS, a geopolitical think tank in Beijing, and the author, among other things, of Statecraft and Society in China, on basic politics in China. And this morning we've just had coffee and breakfast, and a friend of mine who's part of the Samui Real Group, Dr. Eamon McKinney, is with us this morning. And Dr. McKinney has presented to the Samui Real Group on a few different occasions, and he also happens to be an expert in geopolitical events in China and on China in general. And this morning himself and Frans are chatting about China in general, and I've just asked if I can kind of sit in on that and eavesdrop a little bit and just hear their views, because their views are very different to the mainstream narrative about what you might normally hear in relation to censorship and control and communism and all these kind of things that we're relying on the mainstream media to hear. So so I'm going to take a stroll up to where they are, and we're going to record their conversation, again with their permission, and see what they got to say. So I'm just going to give you a quick little look around about where we are at the moment. It's just this absolutely wonderful place in Thailand that I recommend that everybody should, if they get the opportunity, check it out. Come here. You can even send emails or messages and connect with the Samui Real Group. Okay, so let's join the gentlemen and see what they're up to.
Are
you doing that here?
Can I jump in and ask where you're at in the conversation?
I forget. Where were we? No, we digress slightly, but
Sure.
I'll go over and explain that to you later.
Microphone's on.
It looks like one of them new sex toys.
you might know, Eamon. I certainly wouldn't, being as pious as I am.
What do I need sex toys for?
I want to add something to what you said about investments. I have taken the high-speed train from Kunming to Vientiane, and only 2 weeks ago. And now I read it caused such a big booming on both sides, both in Kunming as in Vientiane and in Boten, right over the granice in Laos, that a lot of other South Asian countries like Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam and so, they noticed that the booming of the industry there on both sides, that they also now urgently want some high-speed train connection with China or between them. Also Thailand here is speeding up their high-speed train projects to make the connection between Vientiane and Bangkok. They all of a sudden they realized how useful it is, such a high-speed train, that the investment is really worth on the long term, of course. Then
again, it comes down to, with this conventional private capital and usury that we have in the West, it's not possible.
No,
because it's like going to New York and borrowing money off the mafia to build a bridge. It's okay to borrow $100 on Monday and give them back 150 on Friday, but you know what I mean? If you do that over 30 years, you're going to owe them trillions, No, it's true. The only problem with the high-speed train, the Gautier, which is unbelievable, is you can't run it all the time, and you can't run it everywhere because the fucking thing is so loud. I mean, you can't run in China after midnight. If you ever are standing on a platform and one of these trains goes by,
yes,
it's like standing next to a jet.
It's like a jet fighter going through a tunnel.
Yeah.
Wow.
But seriously, you're on this train, it's going 400 kilometres an hour.
It's
okay, and I mean ultra luxurious. Alright? And you could take a glass of water and put it down and it's hardly moving.
That's right.
You know?
So much for shitty Chinese products. And I know you made us some good points in your lecture yesterday about how the quality is just significantly dropped for the Western people.
That's
but in
right.
China, it's really good bloody stuff.
Definitely, yes. The Chinese engineers, they are unbelievable. How sitting around the table, meeting table with Chinese engineers, I enjoy it. They have a whole encyclopedia with them in their mind, and right away they are so fast thinking that I've never seen that in the West. When you do a brainstorming session for whatever, to find out a new product or to find a quality issue around the table, in half an hour it's really resolved, and you can count on that. In the West, I did many brainstorming sessions with German engineers. It takes time, and you have to give them a little bit massage before they start thinking.
Is that a process thing or is that an intelligence thing? Because you mentioned
Both.
yesterday in your talk,
yes,
the IQ in the people in the political parties was over 140 to even get in the door.
Yes, but also engineers. I was every time astonished from their fast thinking. So they have right away solutions. Before the years 2005 and so, there was a little bit hesitation among these engineers to express them in a big meeting. But that gradually disappeared. Now they are working together as a team, adding up. One is knowing something, the other is adding up to a really high level. That is happening now in China.
I'll tell you, it's amazing how it has turned. We were just talking about dealing with American companies as an intermediary with Chinese companies, and the Chinese companies are so on the ball. I can talk to them about something, it's resolved that day, and whatever they agree to, you can take it to the bank. When they tell you time frames, you can take them to the bank. Western companies have just turned into glacial bureaucracies. They can't make a decision about everything. Everything is political. But the difference, the standard of the person that I'm dealing with in terms of an American project team compared to the Chinese, it's night and day.
Yeah.
It's completely night and day. The Chinese are so businesslike, it is unbelievable.
Isn't that deliberate though as well, to just make the West grind to a halt, and to mess everything up? Do you think? But by
no, we were just saying. I mean, if you look at the situation in Boeing, for example, I've been dealing with Boeing for 35 years, and they've always been assholes. But their quality was never an issue. The reason why they're getting all these issues now, is they just settled a strike, but they've got 35,000 engineers and had a 1% pay increase in 8 years, and the CEO is making $50 million a year on a failing enterprise.
Right.
The reason why you're having all these ridiculous quality problems is because the people that work for Boeing just don't give a shit. They hate the company they work for, and they know the company hates and underappreciates them.
Yeah, that's the point.
So what you're seeing is this lay down thing where people just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I've never seen that in China, ever.
Mm-hmm.
And people, there was always this myth about China that China's cheap because they're using slave labour, bullshit. It's cheap Asian hands and labour intensive. Tim Cook said in 2017, he said, look, China hasn't been a low-cost country for years, and it's true. Trust me, I know, because I know what I pay my staff, all right? Their advantage is speed. So Tim Cook gave an example where they had 10,000 new iPhones or something supposed to go out, all packed and ready. And then something came up at the last minute where they needed to change the screens. Right? They wanted to put new screens in. And these had to go out in 2 weeks, and they got 10,000 phones and decided they want a new screen that doesn't exist anymore. Those phones went out on time. Okay, speed is their advantage. Now, I'll give you another example. Clients of mine have bought a lot of machine tools from China. When I'm talking about machine tools, I'm talking forging hammers. These things are 70 feet high and weigh 1,000 tons. All right. To buy that, the only other place you can buy that is Germany. Now, to get it from Germany, it's about 2.5 to 3 years to make it, and it's about $6 million. In China, it was 10 months, and it was 2. And the reason is they do things quicker. Speed is the competitive differentiator.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right? But people don't understand that. People don't understand what it is that makes China successful. Okay, the results orientated.
Does the lack of policies and procedures and all that HR shit and you know the unwieldy, I don't know, democratic-y type stuff, is that a significant thing?
I
or
think
is it just
it's a cultural issue. It's their general culture, and also the education. I'll give you another example.
Can I be devil's advocate very quickly? And could I say, and again, this is not my opinion, by the way, but could I just say that could it be because the general population are terrified by the autocratic government and they're too afraid to step out of line? Wait, listen, again, there's going to be people watching this, and this is a strong theme. So in other words, they're terrified that they might get locked up in a gulag for 30 years if they don't work 20 hours a day. You know, so how would you answer that? Because that's a theme, isn't it?
Confucianism.
Yeah.
It's centuries old. It's in their veins. They have it in them for generations. It is in the Chinese brain, in their
So you
way
say
of
they're not
thinking.
all terrified and scared of government?
Not
and,
at all.
Far from
If
it.
you think people don't protest or let their dissatisfaction be known in China, you don't know China. I think Jining, Shandong Jining, where I lived for 3.5 years, it's the hometown of Confucius in Shandong, and there was a factory being built in one of the sort of outer suburbs, and it turns out that this factory was a chemical factory, and all the locals kicked off big time. Thousands of them protesting outside the local government office. Local reporters are there, it's being covered, it's on CCTV, the local government get involved, the central government get involved, what's the issue? And they're going, wow, the fucking people are right, no factory.
So they weren't all locked up for protesting, and never heard from again.
No, the point about it is, and this is again the myth, that they have it, that people are not allowed to voice their opinion.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
there's a very popular sort of podcast and radio program that's been on for a few years. It's a Chinese podcast, and what he does is he reviews court cases and criminal cases that happen in different parts of China, because the law there, it's evolving still. All right, it's moved from one system to another, so there's still sort of holes in it. And they were reviewing these cases, and it's like, well, this happened and this happened and this guy, and then people are phoning in and saying, well, look, that law is obviously clearly ridiculous, and people voice their opinion. Well, you know, blah 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 blah. But through this guy's podcast, they've actually changed about 15 or 20 laws that were proved to be, you know, anarchic and not applicable anymore.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So this is not true. I mean, the majority of people in China, okay, particularly those that have got some age on them and can understand where China came from and where it is today, they don't have many problems with the central government. The point about it is the laws that he's passed about limiting like screen time for kids and what he's done to try and prevent the rise of oligarchs like Jack Ma and who's a Western tool. I mean, the Chinese people have been applauding that, and also the way he's clapped down on corruption.
Who is this? Who are we talking about?
Xi Jinping.
Ping. Okay, yeah.
But like corruption, I mean, it used to be any time I went to a town, they go, oh, a foreigner, come on, let's invite you to dinner, and there's 25 of his buddies there spending $400 or $500 on a lavish dinner. That stopped. The Muay Thai gifts for Christmas, so a lot of the like local government corruption and and cronyism, that's all stopped. People are very much in favour of that.
When did that stop?
2012, from Xi Jinping, his acts, he organized the Tigers and Flies project, which completely erased corruption in all of China. It was in a couple of months, and of course we all participate before 2012 in that system. We all knew where to put how much between to get a visa or a certificate or whatever it is.
When I needed to get my visa, like renewed, I'd send my girls with a bottle of Muay Thai down to see our guy at immigration, right? She'd come back with the thing. The ultimate says, oh no, that fucking shit don't go on anymore. So everything that he's done has not been in opposition to the people, it's been widely applauded.
That's right,
but
definitely.
So the central government in China, people have a healthy scepticism there. They think it's a country of communists. No, it's less than 1% of the population, I think, that are members of the Communist Party.
Really?
But yeah. The idea of the Communist Party, okay, is to prevent the imperialists coming again. Alright? If you want to understand and look at the way the Chinese think and look at it through their eyes, you have to understand the century of humiliation.
What is it?
The century of humiliation. 1850, 1950, the Opium Wars, the colonisation, when the government couldn't protect its people, fathers couldn't protect their families, they were treated like dogs. Understand that, because they do. The century of humiliation, never again. Alright, that's the purpose of it. They study imperialism. They study imperialist studies.
Who's they? The people who are put into power, or the actual people on the...
Well, the Communist Party, for sure, their role is to prevent that happening again. Okay, they're never going to privatise their national industries, they're never going to open up their capital markets and float their bonds internationally, because they don't have to. Alright? But people don't understand. I mean, Frans touched on Confucianism. That is their values, just like we're supposed to have Judeo-Christian values, not Christian anyway. That's theirs. The most important tenet of Confucianism is that Confucius said that a man in the course of his life will have 5 principal relationships. Emperor-subject, which is now boss-employee, father-son, big brother, little brother, husband-wife, friend-friend. Now,
what is the last
one? Friend.
Friend.
Right. Yeah. With the possible exception of friend-friend, all of those relationships inherently entail one having authority over the other. So the big brother has authority over the little brother. But he also has a responsibility. So it's a two-way thing. It's not like you're going to do what I tell you. It's kind of like I'm here to look after you. Alright? So you've got this thing. So they're brought up with this thing that everybody has a role to play. Everybody has a role in society, you know, because Confucianism, I mean, that was bred during the times of what they call the warring states. So like 100 years civil war at 5 different states. It was a time of great turmoil.
When was that roughly?
2,600 years ago.
Gotcha.
600 years before Christ. And Confucianism was based on how do you create a harmonious society, where everybody has a role to play and understands it and makes their own contribution. Now, when people talk about Asian culture, there's no such thing as Asian culture. Asian culture, they normally refer to as Confucian, so it's China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, they're all Confucian based.
Vietnam.
The Thais were Buddhists, they had no idea who Confucius is. The Filipinos were Christians, you had Hindus in Malaysia, Muslims. So, Asian values, as generally understood, are Confucian values, you know what I mean? Filial piety, respect for elders, education, hard work. You know, these are good values.
I just fully agree with that. Confucianism is in their veins, or even if they are Buddhist or whatever, or some Christians in China, they still have that Confucianist base in that.
This could be a stupid question, but what? Because I think, like for me, I kind of have this very shallow overview of Confucianism. If I had to ask what's the difference between Confucianism and Christianity, again, that's a big
One's
subject.
a religion and one is a
Philosophy?
It's a philosophy.
So in relation to family values and community and doing the right thing and loving your brother and, you know, thou shalt not kill, what kind of things would be different with that?
Respect for each other. And Guanxi is also part of Confucianism.
What is it, Guanxi?
Guanxi means I'm doing something for you.
Okay.
I don't expect you to compensate me. You don't have to give me back or pay me for that. But you feel a kind of guilt a little bit.
Obligation.
So maybe obligation, right? And maybe 10 or 20 years later, you will compensate me.
Again, little bit devil's advocate here, but there's context to it. So I went through Sinukville in Cambodia, and they're slamming all these, I think 70 casinos in Sinukville in the last 3-4 years. And there was a real, from the locals especially, this very, very anti-Chinese theme of these greedy Chinese moving in, taking over all our town, and just taking, giving nothing. The casinos, for example, that the Cambodians can't work in them because they've got rules against gambling. So you got all a big cohort of Chinese employed, getting great jobs, supercars driving around the place. So there was very much not that theme in Cambodia about the Chinese. In fact, quite the opposite. It seemed to be all take. And there's themes even in Thailand and stuff, and in Westerns about sometimes Chinese travelers not having a bad attitude. So how can I reconcile that with what you're saying? Because you seem to be painting this utopian picture, and I'm suggesting that that's not a theme that sometimes I see.
Maybe the diaspora, Chinese diaspora all over the globe.
Yeah.
They are not so Chinese anymore, not so Confucianist.
Yeah.
It depends. And I agree with you. Also in Chiang Mai, I noticed that the Chinese living there, sometimes second, third, fourth generation, who own business there, all kinds of businesses there, they are not at all loyal to the Chinese government or system.
A lot of Chinese who leave seem to think it's the thing to do to be critical of China, to explain why they're here. But you're talking about the Chinese when they're travelling. I mean, if you look you go back 10, 15 years, when travel was new to a lot of the Chinese, they would inevitably go in a big group.
Yeah.
And
quite loud also.
Yeah, they could be loud. But that's China, so they're behaving.
That's right.
If you look at it now, it's very different now. You don't see that anymore. They understand, particularly the younger generation of Chinese. But their attitudes, if you watch them, like, the Chinese don't know how to queue.
How to which?
How to queue or stand in line, alright?
Yeah.
And I could never understand it. So even like, in the old days, if I used to go from Jining to Shanghai, it was like 14 hours on this frigging train. It was diabolical. And you had to push and shove to get on, because like there was no computerised tickets. You had a ticket for the train. Well, yeah, if you can get on it, you can find a seat, great, you know what I mean? But then they have the Gautier, where it's like an airline ticket, alright? You've got an assigned seat. Okay, and it's really well organised. You stand there, the train pulls up here, the people get off and get on. It's like 1 minute.
1 minute.
They still do the same fucking thing, even though they've got an assigned seat. I remember asking Amy about it. I said, I don't understand, after all these fucking years, why they don't get that. She said, look, we're brought up with it. When you were at school, if you were at the end of the line, you know, for lunch, you got the scraps. You had to push and shove because there was never enough to go round.
So just there, how does that fit in with Confucianism, where it's all about giving and, you know, like there seems to be a massive dichotomy.
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
No, he wasn't talking about Confucianism. He was talking about Guanxi.
Guanxi
means network connections, friendships, mutual support.
So if you got kids in the
obligations.
school who are going to miss out, like standing in the queue, there's a big there's a dichotomy, isn't there?
Yeah, well,
so what's going on? I'm missing something. I can't get my head around it.
She's referencing like
Yeah.
35 years ago, bear in mind, okay? Things have changed out of all proportions since then. But it's just the way it is. But people don't understand how things work in China. You know, we talk about the Chinese believe in win-win business, mutual cooperation. The West think that's bullshit. No, because they've got the stock market mentality. Every deal's got a winner and a loser, and unless he's losing, I'm not winning. All right, it's like this counter trade thing that they have with the stock market. And I remember in the early days, you used to hear this win-win, you know what I mean, mutual benefit, and I put that down to business speak. Now, when I was first there in those first 2 years, I mean, I knew about the art of war, I was a martial artist, but I never ever heard anybody in China, and to this day, I've never heard them use a military metaphor in business, right? Then I go to Northwestern Business School, and all they're doing is the art of war. They're teaching the art of war in business, all right? So it's this, you know, win-lose mentality, okay? They don't seem to understand. And like, I remember when I did my first talk on this, I was talking about the win-win attitude, and all that, I said, there's nothing, that shows how much we've been conditioned to be cynical about the idea that win-win cooperation is something suspicious. I go down the local market and buy something. That's win-win. You're buying off somebody who wants to sell it, and you're buying it because look, that's how we exist with mutual cooperation. Until it comes to business, and all of a sudden it's a ridiculous concept. Now, if you just want a transaction, one stock trade, go ahead, rip somebody off. But if you want it to be a relationship, all right, where you can employ the Guanxi, was always looking for opportunity to add value to your friends, you know. Now, we're cynical about what is the most natural behaviour that people can have when it comes down to trade. It's good for you, it's good for me. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much, yeah. And again, I'm still stuck. So one of the things that I came across in Cairns, talking to businessmen, and there was this theme in Australia, where I used to live, of and also from other people as well, just from different countries, not many, I mean a handful, I don't know, but it seemed to be this general idea, generalized or a generalization of a concept that if you're doing business with Chinese people, it seemed to be that there was very much that win-lose situation you're talking about, and the Chinese had almost like a feather in their cap if they could screw over a Westerner. Again, I'm taking the devil's advocate position with the conversation, because I know for a fact people watching are going to have these ideas, and if they're hearing this utopian kind of point of view, nothing is perfect, I know, but I'm curious myself about that. I don't get it when I hear you guys talking about how good it is. When I hear this, and again, bear in mind, I don't have much to do with China. I've never been there.
Well, I could, in Frans and I were just talking about it. I mean, firstly, I don't think anybody's trying to suggest it's utopian. What we're trying to do is to say, look, most of the information that's put out about China in the West isn't true. And you know, the problem is with China, if you want to pick one particular subject and talk about it, you need to provide a lot of context. You can't decontextualize anything. Okay? The Chinese attitude towards business is completely different.
Completely different to community values, is that what you're saying?
No, it's not that. You've got to bear in mind, look, for 4,000 years, China got by happily as a wonderful trading nation without any written commercial law to speak of. And they managed to do that simply by doing business with people that they know and trust. Now they've got as many commercial laws as anywhere else, unfortunately, today. but they still prefer to do business with people they know and trust, and we don't get that. Now, I'll give you an example. So there was an exhibition a couple of years ago, and I was talking to this American guy, and he said, "Oh, my translator's gone. Would you be able to give me a hand?" So I've gone, and there's 2 Chinese guys on his stall, and one he thought he was going to do business with because he didn't know what the guy was saying. But it turns out that not only is this guy not doing business with him, but he's the Chinaman, he's doing business with the other Chinaman who's beside him. So when I explained to this American, I said, "No, look, I think you've got this all wrong, all right? He's happy to talk to you because you're in the same industry, all right? But no, he's going to be giving this contract to this guy." I said, "Yeah, but that's his cousin." I said, "What's your point?" You know?
Yes,
So
yes.
he said, "Well, we don't do business like that in America." You know what I mean? He said, "Well, how do you do it?" He said, "Well, we do it, family, friends doesn't come into it, you know what I mean? It's whoever's got the best deal." And the Chinese have gone, "Well, how do you know you can trust them?"
Yes.
Said, "Well, we don't, but that's why we got lawyers." And the two Chinese looked at each other and gone,
Yeah, that's right.
they don't get it.
That's right.
All right, so
It's
the idea is before they do business with someone, they want to get to know them. They want to feel comfortable. Want to see that their interests are aligned. You know.
Yeah, of course.
And
You are often referring to Chinese people living abroad.
Gotcha.
different.
I'm not so sure if that is the proper way to learn something about China. Instead, I think that's the worst way to learn something. If I want to know something about China, I don't go to a Chinese restaurant. These people move from China to the West, and they explained to their family back home in China, "I'm going to the West, I will make it in the West, you stay in the poor China, I will make it." Often they don't make it in the West. They have to work terribly hard or they fail, but they don't dare to say that to their family back home because then they're losing face, you know. Keeping face is important in China. So these people are not the proper way to learn something about China. Don't go to a Chinese restaurant in the West to know something about China. By the way, very few of them can speak proper Mandarin Chinese. That's right. They are all from the. That's right. They speak Cantonese or whatever. They cannot even read the regular media in China. They don't have contact with their family anymore. They still have a little bit Confucianist values, a little bit, but they're more Westerners than Chinese.
So by necessity, they've had to drop their values because they wouldn't get along with Western society.
Look, if you go to any random country and you find like a Brit there, and you ask him what's going on in the world or what's going on, they don't know. The Chinese are the same. Everybody lives in silos. They know what's happening day to day. All right.
So use that example again. So with British people living somewhere, that's a good analogy. Tell me.
To think what Frans is saying, to think that you can listen to one Chinaman who's living in the West tell you about China, any more than you would pick some random Brit and ask him to explain exactly what's going on in Britain, is absurd.
Gotcha.
He'll get a few sound bites he's picked up and agreed with off TV. Okay, so the idea that these expat Chinese know what's going on is bullshit.
And do you reckon as well that they're influenced by this whole CNN propaganda stuff because they've been living there for 2 generations? That has to be
the Chinese don't believe the media. Okay, the official story. They know that, like, the government makes statements and they're generally true, but it's propaganda. All right, they know they're being propagandized. So I'll tell you a story. You can turn that off because this won't mean anything to anyone. This is Chinese values, okay?
I'll leave it on because I might.
This is the joke I told Carl Zar and he didn't get. All right. So there's a big conference in Paris, people coming from all over the world for this conference. So the local red light district is giving up for all the foreign tourists. So you go down the red light district, there's a bar there, big American flag. Oh, welcome American guests. 3 Budweiser with every lap dance. The next one has got a big Japanese flag. It's, oh, welcome Japanese guests. Schoolgirls inside. The next one is a big Chinese flag. It's like, oh, welcome Chinese guests. We give fapiao.
Fapiao. Yeah, that's right. That's what I need. The fapiao. Oh. Explaining what the fapiao is first.
It's the official receipt so they can get their expenses back. Right.
I think it's funny. I don't get it at all, but obviously you guys.
You know how they got over? You know how they got over making sure like everything gets taxed.
Okay, what I would ask first was, is that really a good joke?
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yes. The Chinese think that's the funniest thing they ever heard.
Yeah.
Except Carl's off.
Yeah.
No,
Carl,
but the way they got over there was if you go to the store and you buy anything and they give you an official receipt, it's got like a barcode on it. It's a lottery ticket. So, you know, you can go in there and like, you know, it's a lottery. It's like, oh, well, you spent 7 RMB and you've won 700.
Yeah.
You know, one of my young girls who was with me and like, we were buying some furniture or something and she got one and it's like, oh, 700 RMB. That's like 100 quid.
Yeah.
So that's why everybody now gets a receipt.
Okay,
so they have to
it,
issue it. So their tax revenues are enormous.
Yeah.
No, I find the Chinese hilarious. They're funny people.
Yeah, that's right. They are much more humorous than.
Yeah,
we
but
are,
you know,
and
they're funny even when they don't realise it. So I've got this secretary of mine, Eamon, genius IQ. All right, she lives in Germany now. She married a client. So we're sitting there and we're having dinner one night. There's the client, first time in China, he said something about like, there's no 4th floor in the hotel. She said, oh no, 4 is very, very, very unlucky. He said, oh, why is that? He said, well, it sounds like, 4 sounds like the word for death. He said, oh. He said, but 8 is lucky. Oh, said, 8.
Of course it is.
8, very, very lucky. So he said, why? So she said, well, the word for luck is far. The word for 8 is bar, so we think they sound the same, so that must be lucky. And you can see him going, that's fucking tenuous. And she says, also, 7 is lucky. So he said, oh, why? He said, well, because it's close to 8. So he's gone, oh, okay. He said, so is 9 lucky as well? She's gone, no. She's like, looked at me and gone like,
Joe.
Why doesn't he get it?
no, 7's lucky because it's close to 8. You know, so is 9 lucky too? No. When Ryan and I lived there, Ryan was he lived there for a year doing like studying kung fu, right? His gap year, and I went over and we lived together for a few months. It was hilarious, just like with the Chinese and some of the shit. We had so much fun. They are hilarious if you get on the wavelength with them.
Yeah, that's right. I like their jokes also.
That's hilarious, isn't it?
By the way, in Shanghai, I lived at the crossing of subway line 4 and 7. Building there in a Chinese compound, several high-rise buildings. Living at the 8th floor. So, bar. And from there, I have seen more demonstrations than I have ever seen in Belgium.
Right.
People go to the streets for whatever they are unhappy about. They are on the street. And one of them I participated, and they have professional actors or something like that, people in these demonstrations to act, and they use ketchup and all that things, and they wait until the television is there and reporters about that laying on the ground of pain and all kinds of things. Wow, I participated on some of these demonstrations. we should not think that they don't dare to go to the street for demonstrations for all smaller issues. Ups and they are on the street.
Do you know why they do it? Because it works. Because they listen to them.
That's right. And it's
that's the point.
And it's on the local media, local television, up, and they do something about it.
Well, if you've got enough people that are pissed off with something, the least you can do is listen to them and see if they got a reasonable complaint, and they do. And that's so. The reason why they demonstrate is because it works. People demonstrate in the West don't do anything. Do you know what it says over the Confucian Temple in Truthful?
Yeah.
It says, "Isn't it a great pleasure to have friends visit from far away?" That's been there for 2,600 years. That's the way Chinese are. They're so hospitable.
Yeah.
In all my years in China, I have to say everybody was always extraordinarily nice to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
They had a few arguments and that sort of thing, but as a foreigner, they're just flattered that you're there, they're interested in you. That's changed. I've seen a lot more of them now, but back in the old days, I'd be walking down the street and the granddad would give me a baby, have a photograph taken where
I know.
But you can imagine in 76 what it was like.
Yes. Wow. Yes.
Look, you gotta let this man bloody check out, I reckon.
Right. Yeah, go.
Okay, we'll.
Well, then finish this cigar.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
I tell you, I could talk to Frans forever. See, you know Alex well, Alex Craner?
From email, I never met him, but I would like to meet him one or another day.
Come back in March for the next.
Okay, we will wrap this first part up, and we're gonna head to the base of the Samui Reel, the Green Light Cafe, and I'm gonna pick up maybe a part 2 of the conversation there. But it's very interesting just seeing two foreigners, I guess, for all intents and purposes, kind of challenge some mainstream views and thinkings that people have around China, and I probably am influenced very much by that as well, in maybe a negative way. So yeah, I'm interested to hit on some more of the kind of maybe mainstream Western views that are propagated by, as we know, the very deceitful mainstream media in Western society. So yeah, we'll see you back fairly soon.